veteran and Super Bowl champion, and so much more. There's so many things to talk about with this gentleman. Phil McConkey is with us, and I've been honored with this introduction from a mutual friend of ours, Brian O'Hare, friend of the show. So, Phil, just for fun, since it's the Lima Charlie show, I'll do a radio check. Phil, this is Rob. How do you read me? Over.
Read you loud and clear, Rob.
That's fantastic. Sir, I'll tell you, I've been excited about this, and we just have to start with the origin story, right? I mean, we broadcast our flagship station here is veteran owned, by the way, WEBR, and sister station WLVL, so Buffalo and Lockport, and we're in syndication. And you're from Buffalo, so would you please share with us the origin story that led you to first growing up here and going into the Navy and the specific job and everything that followed?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I grew up on the west side of Buffalo, Lower West Side as an infant, and then Congress Street, 177 Congress, up until I think sixth grade, and we moved to Auburn Avenue near Grant Street. Went to school 19 as a kindergartner, and then on to Annunciation Grammar School through eighth grade, and had just an absolutely wonderful childhood. Didn't know, didn't realize, didn't care that, today we'd be categorized as lower middle class. All I knew was I had a great, loving, huge family, and I was protected and loved, and had, such incredible friendships throughout the neighborhood. I just, at that time in the 60s, you'd go out on the street and there were dozens of kids just playing in the streets,
Sure.
the playground, and nobody worried about crime or something bad happening to a kid because it was such an incredible community. All the parents were out on porches and families, and in fact, I couldn't even get into mischief at that time because my friend's family would report on me. My dad was a cop; he knew every move I made,
Oh,
no matter
sure.
what. I swear to this day, I swear that my dad paid kids, friends of mine, to inform on me if I did anything bad because he knew every move I made, even though I was out in the playground at School 45, playing basketball or whatever, throwing the football around. So for me, it was a incredible childhood, a wonderful way to grow up with great family, extended family, and community. And I was all Buffalo, man. I was, die hard in every way you could imagine as a little kid.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I was born and raised here myself. It's a fantastic community. And so how did the idea of the service come about? When did that start to, you know,
You
form
know,
with you?
you're going to ask me stuff that I'm going to recall from, when I was 6, 7, 10 years old. And my wife gets on me because I can't remember what she told me to do this morning, but I will describe to you in gory detail, in the 60s. My recollection, my first athletic event, I think it was in second grade at Annunciation High School, and there were tryouts for the track team. And I saw the uniform and I was just amazed. It was a simple white t-shirt with a foot with wings on it, that look for track
Yeah,
with enunciation. And I just thought that that was the greatest thing I had ever seen, outside of my Bills love at that time. I just wanted desperately to get that t-shirt and be on the track team. And I remember we went out on Parkdale Avenue, just off of Lafayette, and Father Hughes, who was a Monsignor then, or a priest at Annunciation. He was the track coach, and we went out there, and we had a couple races, and I was lucky enough to make the team, and that was the first big honor I ever had.
that's awesome. The first of many uniforms and many teams that you were a part of. That's fantastic.
Well, the other thing I remember as a kid, on Congress or Auburn Avenue, what, when I got to the NFL, and people would say, like, who hit you the hardest? You're playing wide receiver at 160 pounds and returning punts. I just got clocked. I got crushed. And people always ask, well, who hit you the hardest? And they're expecting me to see, Ronnie Lott, Kenny Easley, guys like that of my era, defensive backs and safeties. And I said, nothing hits harder or with more impact is when you're a kid on Auburn Avenue running full speed down the street, looking back for the ball, and you run smack into the back of a parked Buick. Nothing hits harder than a parked Buick. So you talk about Buffalo tough. That's how I grew up. So
Buffalo tough, and playing in the winter is no joke around here.
oh,
You can,
yeah, the other thing, about the winter, again, to be a professional athlete, you got to have good balance, right? That's just
yeah,
prerequisite. And I'm telling you, I believe that some of those skills that I obtained were honed on Auburn Avenue. I remember my mom go to the store, buy a loaf of bread. Cass and Bill's was a block away, you know, and the streets were covered in ice and snow. And I'd go get that loaf of bread and I'd pretend it was a football. And I would run home and make cuts. Like I was avoiding tacklers on the ice and snow, right? And it's slippery. But I'm telling you, I think that helped me gain balance at that time. So yeah, I had dreams as a little boy, man, scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
yeah,
Well, I'm old enough to where, the Super Bowl I didn't start till I was, I think 1969, 67, maybe. Maybe I was 10. The Packers and the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs. Oh, God, I remember that vividly because the Packers played the Kansas City Chiefs in the first Super Bowl. So I think it was 67. So I would have been 10. One of the most painful moments of my life. And I'm get into this because I hate to lose a lot more than I like to win, right? The loss is that emotion is much more intense and it
sure.
sticks with you forever. Bills win uh, no, the Bills are playing the Chiefs to go to, the Chiefs, our nemesis, the very first Super Bowl. And I think it was at War Memorial Stadium. And yeah, they beat us in that game. And there was a running back for the Chiefs. His name escapes me right now, but I just remember him taking the ball somewhere around midfield and avoiding, like, it seemed like every player on the Bills, maybe twice, to score a touchdown that broke our backs. And the Chiefs go to the first Super Bowl, and I'm still, my heart still aches.
Yeah, yeah,
But again, I could, detail.
yeah, yeah.
But again, what I did yesterday, I can't tell you. So anyway, but for me, it was just an absolute wonderful way to grow up. And I just adored football. That was my first love. And there wasn't much back then. It was football, baseball, basketball, and
Sure.
not much baseball where I grew up, and basketball, and at barely 5'10". That wasn't going to be my game, but I fell in love with football because of the Bills. It was my passion. That's all I ever wanted to do. And, I couldn't wait to, go from the streets to playing for the West Side Bills and at Canisius. And, at Canisius, we never lost a game my last 3 years on varsity. I played
Wow.
offense and defense and special teams. I never came off the field for the whole game.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
I was like all Catholic, all American. I was all New York State as a defensive back, but at 145 pounds, there weren't many schools, lining up to offer me a scholarship. So my dad tapped him. He was tapped out. He worked 3 jobs to put me through Annunciation Grammar School and in high school at Canisius, and there was just no money and couldn't get a scholarship because of my size. And West Point and Annapolis, the Naval Academy came calling, and the idea of being able to serve my country and play Division I football and have a dream to be a Navy pilot, that appealed to me. So at 145 pounds, I went on to Navy and had a great career there and MVP of the first Holiday Bowl my last year and at the Naval Academy, and I'm looking at 5 years active duty Navy, which I was excited about. So I had these two dreams as a little boy growing up on the West Side. I wanted to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and I want to be a pilot. I'd never been on a plane until I was 18. I went on my first recruiting trip. I got recruited by Columbia, so I went to New York City. So it was the first time I went on a plane. A couple weeks later, I went to West Point, and a couple weeks after that, I went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and decided I was going to Navy, and had this great career there. Going to be an officer, and so I put this other dream, scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. It was over, right? Done. But I've got this other exciting career as a Navy pilot, and so I remember going to flight school. And I'm going to fly jets, of course, on carriers. And once we got into primary and we started doing all this stuff, I go, oh my, I don't have the stomach for this, man. So I went more stable platform. I flew helicopters. But yeah, so I'm having this great time, all over the world, flying off ships in the Mediterranean and all these places, and wonderful life. And a couple years, 3 years into my commitment, this thing starts coming into my head about what, this other dream, about playing pro football. What would have happened if I would have had, could I have made it? And would I have fulfilled my lifelong ambition to play pro football? But I got this great career and it's impossible to do that other thing. And, 3, 4 years into this, I just decided I don't want to be 68 years old sitting in this seat, wondering what if. I don't want to go through life wondering what would have happened if I had the opportunity. So I decided I'm getting out. I'm going to give up this wonderful, incredible career in the Navy, and I'm going to go chase this dream. Right. At the time, I was going to be 27 years old, barely 160 pounds. I hadn't played football in 5 years. People basically laughed at me. They said, it's impossible. You can't just, you think about it, the average guy comes out of college at 22. If he makes it in the NFL 1 year, the average life expectancy is 3.2 years. So you come in at 22, you play 3 years. If you even make it initially, the average guy is done at 25. I'm 27.
Right.
I get to the Giants, there were only 4 or 5 guys older than me on the team. There wasn't a guy within 20 pounds of me on the team. I
Wow.
got no chance.
Wow.
There's 13, 14 wide receivers in camp, 3 of us under 6 feet, not a guy within 20 pounds. I'm older than all of them. I haven't played football in 5. I have no chance at all. And I got lucky that I got in the right situation with the Giants, and I got there because one of my college coaches, Steve Belichick, who was a legend at the Naval Academy there for decades and decades, his son, obviously Bill. Bill
Right.
just became defensive coordinator. Bill Parcells just became head coach. And they give me a tryout. They give me a look, come run the 40. Ran a 4.4. Okay, give you come to training camp. And I just fought and scratched and clawed every single day, every play, every practice. And back then there were like 5, 6 weeks of 2 days in the summer, full
Right.
pads. And I thought after every rep that they're going to come over and figure out that I'm a fraud and I don't belong here. I'm too old, I'm too small, and get out. But I just persevered, and I had one talent that stuck out, especially with defensive minded coaches like Parcells and Belichick, and then Romeo Crennel, who was special teams coach, who became an NFL coach, defensive coordinator also. I can catch punts in a rock slide. And that's very important to those defensive minded guys. They come up with a scheme to get their defense off the field. You don't want that little, to fumble the ball, right? And watch Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks and Jim Burt and Jerry Carson come back on the field after they just worked hard to get off. So I had that talent, and that's what got me noticed, and that's what helped me make that team initially.
Oh, it's incredible. And taking that bold leap, like you said, to leave a
Oh, by
military
the
career.
way, I'm going to interject here.
Sure.
People said, "Well, why didn't you go play for the Bills?" Well, obviously, my boyhood idol team, and O.J. Simpson and Jack Kemp, and I can go on and on and on. That was number one. And I remember writing a letter to the player personnel director at the time, hoping to get a shot, and didn't hear anything. And I got invited to this Giants mini camp. And after like the second day in practice, I'm all bloodied up. We're just in shorts and helmet and on the AstroTurf, and I'm diving for balls, and my elbows and knees just bloody, and I don't care. I figure they're going to cut me any minute. Um, they offered me a contract to go to training camp, right? The contract at that point mean nothing. You can still get cut, but you got to have a contract to go to camp. And I didn't sign it that morning, and I waited through lunch. I'm just hoping that the Bills would call, because I was desperate to go to the Bills, and I hadn't heard anything. And I'm stretching for this afternoon practice, and I'll never forget it. And this is Bill Parcells. This is his first year as head coach. He comes over to me. He goes, "Hey, son, I noticed you hadn't signed that contract yet." And he goes, "Well," I said, "Well, I'm kind of waiting for the Bills to my hometown, whatever. He goes, I'll throw in another 5,000 on the signing bonus. I go, done deal. So I was had for 5 grand, but never heard from the Bills. But that's okay. They're still my first love, and that never goes away.
Oh, that's a fantastic detail. I love that. And I was saying it's just such a bold move to make at that young age. You might have been an old man on the team, but you're young. These college kids nowadays, you don't even fully develop your frontal cortex there until you're like 26, 27. Yeah.
I just think, any advice I ever give kids, ever give adults, I don't
Mhm.
care what age you are, 27, 68, you got to chase your dreams, man.
Hmm.
You can't let people dissuade you.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what makes each other, the rest of us tick, right? As much as my parents loved me and adored me, they knew, but they really didn't know what's really in here. Only you know. And you've got to follow your heart because I'll tell you, at that time, when people found out what I was attempting to do, you know, they laughed at me.
Yeah.
I was told, you're crazy. The odds are astronomically against you. Why are you even trying? Right? Maybe the only my parents and my best friend who helped train me, my Naval Academy buddy, Kit McCulley, maybe 3 people in the whole world thought that I could even have a chance. And everybody laughed, and either to my face or behind my back. And Rob, I'm telling you, I had this burning fire to succeed and accomplish this dream. And the naysayers, they just added fuel to my fire. The more they
Absolutely.
said I couldn't do it, the more they laughed. I said, bring it on. It
Yeah.
just ignited me even more and more. And I just can't imagine sitting here talking to you. Well, you wouldn't be talking to me if I didn't even try it. But if I didn't try it and I didn't attempt it and succeed, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what if. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Look, if I went and wasn't good enough and I got cut, at least I knew that I tried. But not knowing was the thing that would have really got me.
Absolutely. And all the naysayers later on in life had to buy a ticket to watch you work.
Yeah.
So there's some good feelings about that too. So, oh, that's wonderful. And of course, just like everything at that high level of success, you have to pivot a lot, right? Different teams, different circumstances, different coaches. You know, I think the military, I would assume, was a big factor of how your brain was already very, very much willing to adjust fire, as we used to say, mentally to whatever the new scenario was. And that probably gave you a mental edge above all, I would think.
Well, and I had great guidance and leadership growing up all through sports and school. Started at home with my family. My dad, worked 3 jobs to, send me to, Annunciation and Canisius High School. Um, at the Naval Academy, I'll never forget, along the lines that you're talking about, I had Coach um, George Welsh. He used to talk about that all the time. You're either getting better or you're getting worse in life. You think you work real hard to get to a certain point and I'll just coast. Well, you're not coasting. You're actually decreasing. And it was kind of hard to understand, as a kid, what that meant. But, I listened to my coaches, I listened to my teachers and especially my father. And I just refused to accept the constraints that others placed upon me. I just refused for whatever reason. Thank goodness, I was able to, persevere and move on, and be able to succeed because, it's not easy. It's not easy at any level. And, you have to, I think, to be extremely successful and do incredible things, you have to hate to lose a lot more than you like to win.
Yeah.
You get to a point where winning is just a relief that you didn't lose. You're doing okay because I found out that the emotion, the feelings of a loss, of losing, of not succeeding, are much more intense than the spoils of victory or the joys of winning. I'll give you a couple examples. One college, one NFL. At Navy, we beat Army 3 times handily. Okay, but one time, my junior year, in frigid conditions at the old JFK Stadium in Philadelphia, um, I just missed catching a touchdown at the end of the game to win it. And I was kind of out of bounds and the ball just tipped off my finger. And it was that close to, 3 points, we're down. We went for it on fourth down, last play, instead of trying to tie it and kick a field goal. And I just remember this freeze that came over my body. And it took me forever. And in fact, I've never gotten over it. Right. How old was I, junior? So 20 years old, right? I have not gotten over that. I don't think about the 3 wins over Army or the
Right.
great games I had or the touchdown I scored, whatever. I think about that play that lost that game and that feeling, how horrible it was. But that drove us the next year to go do great things and, you know,
Mhm.
go kill Army, go to the Holiday Bowl and, beat Brigham Young. And that spurred us to do that. Another example is the Super Bowl. I had 3 huge plays in the second half that helped us win the Super Bowl. We're losing 10-9 at halftime to Denver. And or 10-9, we're up 10-9. It was a point difference. And come out in the second half and dominated. I had 3 huge plays. I had a big punt return that set up a field goal. I caught a flea flicker to the 1 foot line. We scored, kind of blew the game open. Then I caught a gift pass at the end, a touchdown. I had 3 huge plays in the second half. Rob, I don't think much about those plays unless somebody brings them up. But what I think about, and when I think about that game, I think about 3rd and 3 from our 40-yard line, right? It's the second play of the second quarter.
Mhm.
Second play of the second quarter, 3rd and 3 from our 40-yard line. We played Denver late in the year at our place, and it was a cold game, and it was a tie game, close game, and we needed a field goal at the end to win it. In fact, I caught a 46-yard pass to set up the field goal to win that game in the regular season. So they scouted us, they knew us. We were a conservative offense. Parcells, Belichick, defensive coaches, run the ball, throw it when you have to, play great defense, special teams. But this game, Parcells, in the biggest game of his life, what a great example for life and leadership. He went totally contra to who he was. He opened it up. We're throwing the ball on first down. Well, we never did that. We always ran on first down. He's throwing flea flickers. We faked a punt. I mean, the biggest game of his life, he comes up big. And I'll never forget, it's 3rd and 3 from our 40, second play of the second quarter. I line up in the slot, right? There's a defensive back on me, like in the game just weeks before, a couple months before. 3rd and 3, he's expecting me to go 5-6 yards, curl up, in or out, short pass. You'll get the first down, keep the drive alive. That's what they were expecting. So we knew that they were expecting. So we had this fake in where I would come up at that 5-6 yard area. I'd start breaking down like I'm going to turn or go in or out to catch a short pass. The corner squats on me. He's waiting for it. He scouted us. He played against us and me just, weeks before. And he's waiting for that. That's in their game plan. That's in their head. Well, we had something different planned. I was going to stutter step him and I'm going on a go route right down the middle. So I stutter step this guy 5-6 yards. He squats on me. I take off right in the middle of the field. The 2 safeties vacated. There's this huge void in the middle of the field.
Right.
This guy, as he realized I was taking off, I could see his eyes. They got like this big. He knew he was beat. It's going to be a 60-yard touchdown in the Super Bowl. He throws out his right leg at the end, trips me. I try to keep my balance. I go stumbling, fall to the ground. Bill Sims lets the ball go. So not only it wasn't completed because I fell down, the guy knocked me down. They didn't even call a penalty. That
Wow.
was one of Sims' 3 incompletions on the day. He was 22 out of 25 with 3 touchdowns. That play, and then there was another drop. The guy was 24 out of 25 in the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. But my point is, I think about that, and that still gnaws at me all these years later. The point, again, competitors hate to lose a lot more than they like to win. Unfortunately, it's a blessing and a curse because it spurs people to do great things, to do things that they don't
Sure.
think they're capable of, or nobody else thinks they're capable of. But it allows you to overcome incredible odds when you hate to lose a lot more than you like to win.
Yeah. And when you're taking a loss, it's not just what you feel your uh, participation in it is. It's the feeling of you did something that may have hurt the team. And so you're feel that overwhelming wave you felt, during the Navy years. It's like, oh, I'm letting other people down. So that's a bigger hit. I think that's why
Well, you don't,
the
you
victory
don't,
might feel personal,
yeah.
but the losses feel like
Well,
you've
it-
hurt
it's
others. Yeah.
it's the same thing in the military, right? So if
Exactly. That's what I was leading into. Yeah.
you got to do your job. Listen, I was a punt returner, right? I played wide receiver, but mostly punt returner and lowly job, maybe the last guy on the roster.
Yeah.
But Parcells and Belichick, as we mentioned before, how important that was, ball security on punt returns and all the guys. The reason we were champions is because I felt like I was as important. My teammates, the coaches, made me, the lowly old punt returner, small old punt returner, they made me feel as important as anybody on the team. They made me feel I was as important as Phil Simms, the quarterback, or Lawrence Taylor, greatest player ever. So when you're made to feel important and you're doing it for someone else, in addition to yourself, you give more, you try harder. You don't
Absolutely.
want to let them down
Yep.
because of the way you're treated.
Yeah.
In the military, same thing. Yeah, I was the hotshot pilot sitting in the cockpit flying the plane, but yeah, I had an important job. But the second class petty officer, enlisted man or woman who were tightening the bolts on the rotor head of that aircraft, they didn't fly it. They weren't even on the aircraft when we took off from their ship, but they are as important as the pilot. So when they're made to feel important, they try harder, they do more because they're part of a team and they're made to feel part of a team. And those are great lessons that I learned, early on, in sports does that for you, and the West Side Bills, man, and all through my life and still to this day. And I'm seeing it through my daughter who just graduated from the Naval Academy. So that
Oh,
team,
congratulations. That's fantastic.
oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
she's a lot tougher than I am, I'm telling you. She went Marine Corps, so that shows you she's
Oh,
a
wow. That's fantastic. Love it. I
yeah.
love it.
I I started family late in life. I'm an older father. Um, Babied my little girl like you wouldn't believe, but she would have none of it. My wife would have none of it. And when it came from time for school, she could have gone anywhere. She was that
Sure.
capable.
Sure.
And I would have paid for it. I don't care. But, you know, she chose the Naval Academy, and I was just kind of shocked. And I even thought early on, hey, she's not going to make it. She grew up in Southern California, and I babied her, and that place is tough. And boy, she had grit and resolve that I didn't really understand she had. And I give my wife credit, for most of it or all of it. And then she goes through there and she wants to be a Marine. And God bless her and those kids. I mean, I got to know a lot of midshipmen, through her and being around there. And boy, I'll tell you, we're in good hands. These kids of today, whatever issues or problems we may have, look no further than some of these young kids in our military and what they're doing and how they're volunteering. It's a great feeling. No, but we're in really capable, good hands.
Oh, absolutely. I've been out 20 years now this year, and it's just amazing to talk to some of the younger folks. And it's like, whenever you get disappointed with some things you might read in the news or political winds that change from time to time, I can ignore all of that when I just sit and talk to
Yeah,
a young cadet or a young enlistment. You see that the service, the drive to serve, is still very much alive in
I,
so many young people,
I think
despite all the obstacles you
yeah,
think would deter them from that.
I think the big thing is they understand they want to be bigger. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. I think that's a
Correct.
big
Yeah.
motivating factor. And what we see on Wall Street today in our company, we're a disabled military veteran investment bank. About half of our team are military veterans, half are Wall Street veterans. I think what we see is when kids are coming out of the military, the things that they possess. Okay, maybe they don't have an MBA from an Ivy League school, but young lady was an explosives ordnance disposal officer in the Navy. Part of her job was diffusing bombs attached to ships underwater. You cross a wire and boom, it's over, right?
I
Okay,
think
she
she can
did.
handle stress in a meeting.
She
Yeah.
can handle like sitting in a comfortable chair, calling somebody up, and helping them with their finances, right?
Yes.
So you juxtapose, these two things. I just remember again this young woman who's awesome. She came to us, fresh out of the military. She wanted to be in sales, and you got to start cold calling and sales. And she, I could see her struggling because it's a hard thing to do, right? Pick up the phone, call somebody you don't know, and I
Sure.
can see that she's struggling after a while. But this is what she wanted to do. I walked over to her. I said, Kim, tell me what you did in the Navy. She goes, I was an EOD officer. I go, yeah, yeah, but explain to me. She goes, well, you know what I did. I go, no, no, explain to me as if I have no clue. So she goes through as a diver underwater, and there's a bomb attached to a ship and she's got to disable it, and by doing all this, and she's going through how difficult this is. And I go, so let me ask you something. If you cross wires, what happens? She goes, boom, it's all over. I'm dead, the mission fails, and whatever. I go, okay, what you just described to me versus, are you in a comfortable chair right now? Is the temperature okay in the room? I go, is this phone handle okay? Hi, this is Kim from Academy Securities. I'd like to talk to you about, and I go like this to her. That juxtaposition, just like the light came on.
I love it. I
He has
love it.
just absolutely crushed it, but it's so true. What she had been through and the experiences she had being in the military. I mean, I'm taking that any day of the week. And she's been extremely successful in providing extremely well for her family. And it's taken us, Academy Securities, we've gone from a nothing startup in an industry and a segment that had been around for decades, and, you know, military veterans, Wall Street veterans, and I think we've got a staff of retired subject matter experts, with admirals and generals, with their finger on the pulse of the geostrategic risk landscapes, expertise from cybersecurity to to just about AI to anything.
Yeah.
And so we provide those services to our clients, and it's helped us continue to grow and get bigger and better, and help change the lives of a lot of these young heroes.
Yeah, and
Um,
I love that. And I don't want to overlook those details of and I want to catch our listeners up to speed on how that happened. So if you forgive me, we'll go back a little bit. But when you knew that you were transitioning from professional sports and when you decided to get into this business, it's so fascinating to me because you're the vice chairman of Academy Securities. So for listeners, this is an outfit that obviously you can do it better than I can, but the majority of folks running this fantastic business are military veterans themselves. And that's very unique. It's the first of its kind since 9/11, I believe, right? I don't want to talk over your details there, but could you just catch our listeners up to speed about what year it started, how it started, and what the core mission was?
so the segment of the market that we're in had been around for decades. When the government and corporate entities started to recognize disadvantaged entities, women-owned, African American, Hispanic, Native American, been around for quite a few years. And at the time, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq wound down, 2008-ish, I would say.
Right.
The government and the corporate entities started to recognize the disabled veteran aspect of diversity. Um, so we kind of fell into that bucket. So when we started the firm, when we entered the space that we've been around for a while, and as veterans, what do we understand more than anything is service. We're in a service industry. We're here for our clients, and you know, we don't have the balance sheet or the assets that Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or Bank of America, Morgan Stanley have. We're a small investment bank. What can we do to add value to Amazon, who are getting ready to issue $12 billion of debt, and they borrow it from the big banks, and the banks go out and raise it. So what can we do differently? So true to our nature as a military firm, we understood the geopolitical nature of everyday life, of finance. So we started what we call our geopolitical intelligence group, made up of two generals, a Marine general, a classmate of mine from the Naval Academy, who was an F-18 pilot, and a West Point general. And we started there. So we thought that their expertise, their finger on the pulse of what goes on around the world would be helpful,
Right.
to firms. And these firms are getting ready to issue $12 billion of debt, and news comes out the Iranians are threatening to close the Straits of Hormuz. What does that mean? Do we go through with this transaction? Well, now we can get them on the phone with an expert who can explain that situation to them and give them calm to make those decisions. And we get rewarded by being placed on those transactions as a co-manager in some cases. We build up our balance sheet. We get to go hire more Wall Street experts and veterans and more military veterans and give them opportunities that they wouldn't get at a big bank because again, they don't have that MBA.
Right.
So those that's helped us grow. We're up to 33 now retired admirals and generals and subject matter experts, and it's extremely valuable to our customers to navigate geostrategic risk, which plays into the economy and finance and
Yeah.
capital markets.
Yeah, it's fantastic, sir. And I love how you're mentoring the next generation. I mean, it's just, and I know because, I have experience in that industry as well. And it's tough. And not everyone could just, like you said, walk right in to that field. So you're
Yeah.
going out and actually actively recruiting people with military talent. And then you're using your experiences both professionally and from your military days to help educate them in a way that makes them successful.
So the Wall Street veteran sits right next to the military veteran.
Yeah, I love that. It's
This
just fantastic.
combination is lethal because there's two things. One,
Yes.
the Wall Street veteran has the know-how, the ability to generate revenue, the experience, the contacts. The military veteran just transition doesn't have any of that. What do they have? Coming right out of the military. Honesty, integrity, loyalty, teamwork, and something called service. We're in a service industry,
Yeah.
right? All too often on Wall Street, the selfish needs are put before the client's needs.
Mhm.
We, as veterans coming out of the military, understand it's the other way around, right? We got to put our clients first, our country first, our teammates first. So from football to the military to flying, it's your teammates first, it's the client first. And that's the mentality that we built,
Yeah.
one of service. And that's been a huge part of the success. And we just continue to grow that on the broker dealer side. We've gotten into asset management, we're getting into wealth management. And so to create, better products for our customers and serve them better, and also a platform that we can hire and train more and more military veterans.
I think that's fantastic, sir. And on our website, folks, I'll have some links so you can check out Academy Securities and everything they're about. It's it's very impressive. So, well, clearly you've lived several different incredible seasons through your life, right? But there's a common theme. I mean, you have from the very beginning your first uniform for track, right?
Yeah.
You've worn many you've worn many uniforms. You've served with some incredible teams. You were coached and now you are coaching as well. I always like to ask kind of as we wrap up, I always kind of like to ask, with all the lessons you've learned now, if you could go back to your young self in our wonderful hometown of Buffalo, New York, and time travel and just talk to yourself for a minute or less before you embarked on the journey and joined the Navy, what would you tell yourself, knowing you can't change anything, but what would you tell yourself um, with some guidance if you had a minute or less?
I would, as hard as I worked as a kid, I would tell myself, work harder. While you're young and strong and capable, do it now because it gets much harder later on in life. Do it now. Have this mindset of hating to lose more than you like to win. Be a competitor. I'm 68 years old. I'm still competing. I can't stop. It's a blessing and a curse. And you just that's the exciting part of life. That there's always something bigger and better that you need to strive for. But you only get there by working. And the big thing, as I mentioned earlier, don't believe the pundits. Don't listen to the noise. They'll try to convince you you can't do something that takes a lot of energy and enthusiasm because they don't have that within themselves. They don't want to try it. And the worst thing that can happen to them is you go try it and succeed. It makes them feel worse about themselves. So don't listen to them. Don't get dragged down the sewer by others around you. Be yourself, no matter how daunting it is, no matter how much negativism there is around you. Be you, go after it, chase it, you'll get it.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic advice. Well said. I can't thank you enough for your time and for joining us today. Folks, it's been my absolute honor and privilege to speak with Philip McConkey, Buffalo's own, and among all the accolades, I am honored to call him a fellow veteran. Please check out academysecurities.com, and there'll be a link in a bio on our site if you forgot any of the details from today's broadcast. And certainly, if you want to replay this, we have that online for you as well. So, Phil, I just thank you again, sir. I'm so grateful, and I want to thank you for your service and your continued service, and the fact that you're leading and helping the next generation of veterans is you've made us all very proud, sir. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate being with you, all your listeners, all the military veterans, active duty. Go for it. And the last thing I got to say is go Bills.
That's right. All right, sir. God bless you, and also to your daughter and her new career in the Marine Corps. Thanks so much. Folks, stand by, and we'll catch up right after the break.